Alright, picture this. December 2025, one of the worst years ever. Definitely one of the worst years of my life personally. You have the final season of Stranger Things wrapping up, and everyone's sort of talking about how it's sort of underwhelming. Volume 1 was sort of good. Volume 2 was plain bad. The finale was horrible on all fronts. But despite the lack of like positive reception, it was still a very, very huge topic, and it kind of felt like it was everywhere. And going into the month of December 2025, I sort of thought that that's what it was going to be. It was going to be just like Stranger Things December, Stranger Things Christmas, Stranger Things New Year's Eve. That's just kind of what it was going to be like, because it's such a massive production. And I didn't think that there was anything in the cards in December that could potentially overshadow such a massive production and, you know, like an ending of such an iconic series. Here comes in a little small TV show produced by Crave Canada and also distributed by HBO. Poorly, might I add to that. And then the internet found out about it and decided to do its magic on it. Suddenly, my entire Twitter timeline, my entire TikTok For You page, my entire Instagram For You page, my entire homepage on YouTube was just people talking about the show, people, you know, showing clips from the show, people making edits about the show, and occasionally people talking about, like, I don't know, Stranger Things or like Christmas or very, very concerning political news. And mind you, I haven't seen the show up until that point. But the way people talked about it made me more and more curious, and it got to a point where I felt like I was like actively missing out. So I was just like, hello, I'm just gonna sit down, I'm gonna watch the episodes that are out, and I'm gonna see what the hubbub is about. If I like it, I like it. If I don't, I don't. Might as well give it a shot. People were saying things about this show that I personally found like were almost, I don't know, unrealistic. Like, it was revolutionary for queer media. It was one of the most beautifully shot shows of 2025, that it overshadowed, you know, this $1 million beast that was Stranger Things, that it has like such better character writing and acting and basically everything. Like, at first I genuinely thought that this was just going to be a show about two hockey players going at it. Boy, was I wrong. It's been a long time since I've developed this sort of an attachment to a piece of media, whether it's a show, a film, an album. I feel so many strong emotions about this project, so many strong emotions. And I felt like there was just no better way for me to channel that than to make a video essay about it. So let's talk about Heated Rivalry. Hello, my name is Freyr. I'm your favorite local forest gremlin and a Polish sociology student, and I want to welcome you to my little corner of the internet where I discuss all forms of popular media that interest me, whether that's shows, music, books, whatever gives. And today we're talking about probably the number one show of 2025, one of the best shows I've seen in a while, and also a show that, you know, created entire internet communities, a show that made us all feel so much more seen and understood and loved. Heated Rivalry is a big step in the right direction for queer media at large, and I want to talk about it. So in this video, I'm going to be discussing all things Heated Rivalry. First, we're going to be talking about how this show even was created, what happened, and how it was such a success. Then we're going to be talking about all of the episodes. There's going to be like a quick recap of them. I'm going to talk about like the things that I love the most in those episodes, some of the favorite storylines that I personally loved. And then we're going to be also talking about a little bit of like the production aspect and why, in that sense, Heated Rivalry is also like a massive success, and it's a big step in the right direction for studios as well. And at the very end, probably the most important section of the video is we're going to be talking about the meaning of Heated Rivalry, why it's so important, and why the story of it matters so much, especially nowadays. And I mean, listen, you're definitely going to want to like grab a snack, sit down, because this video is about to be long as hell. Listen, that Stranger Things video that I posted like 2 weeks ago about how the writing of queer characters in it sucks ass was an hour and 10 minutes, and I had barely 10 pages of notes for this. I have 15 pages of notes for this video. I had so much to say, and so you're gonna be here for a while. Of course, that's only if you choose to watch till the end, but I hope you do, right? That's what cool people do.
Whoever you are, thank you.
But before we get into the actual video, I want to quickly encourage you to please subscribe to my YouTube channel. You can like the video, you can hype it, you can comment down below, you can share it around with your friends. And you can also follow me on all of my other social media, which includes Twitter. I'm very funny on there. Go and follow me. TikTok, Instagram, if you want to like more personal look into my life. And also you can follow me on like Letterboxd and other stuff. Basically everything is going to be in the description box below, and I really appreciate it. Thanks. So now, without further ado, let's talk about Heated Rivalry and how it started, how it became such a success. This show is based on a novel named Game Changers, which is by an author, and I apologize if I butchered this name. It's Rachel Reid, like R-A-I-D. My pronunciation of certain names is going to be weird in this video because I do have like a problem with it slightly. This is not my first language, so like just beware of that. I have not read this book. However, I did order it and I'm planning on reading it. I hope it's good. And also if you want a video about it, make sure to let me know. In 2023, she was reached out to by a man named Jacob Tierney, who thought that it would be an interesting idea to try and develop this book into a show, following him like learning about how the sports romance genre is so popular, especially like in the like book talk communities, which I mean, a smart move definitely, because that is a very popular genre. But I think most of the time when we see it, it's around like straight couples. So in a way, Game Changers is an actual like game changer. So the roots of the show go back to 2023 and it ended up premiering in 2025. First, it was premiered at the Image Plus Nation LGBTQ Plus Film Festival in Montreal. And then later on November 28th, the first 2 episodes ended up premiering online on the Crave Canada platform. I would say that the internet's obsession with this show started around like the first week of December. Like the first 2 episodes were already out, and I would say like around episode 3, it really ramped up. That's where I started seeing the edits as well. So many people kept on talking about it and bringing up different points as to why this show is so important and why it matters so much. Listen, I'm gonna do my best to acknowledge most of these talking points and like talk about them a little bit more in depth. But if there are any that I missed, please be forgiving, because this show started a lot of different conversations, and like there's no way that I've like remembered all of them. There's absolutely no way. Now I want to talk about something slightly different, and that is why people latched on to this show so much. Like I would say that there are 4 main reasons that I personally see for the big success of Heated Rivalry and why people actually like tuned in to watch it. And I would say most of these points also go back to a later section of the video in which I'm going to be discussing, you know, the meaning of Heated Rivalry. I think it all connects very well. The first point that, in my opinion, drew the audiences was the cast. This is a phenomenal cast. These people are so talented, and it was a big drawing factor because their acting is actually so phenomenal. And I mean, they do a great job in the show. But I would say another factor that is really interesting when you look at the cast is that, listen, this is going to be a brave statement, and I don't mean to be rude, but I have not heard about a single person on this cast prior to Heated Rivalry. I did not know any of these people, any of them. And I think that's a big drawing factor actually to the show. Like, people are tired of the same 4 faces that we keep on seeing in every show, in every film. Of course, I would say that this is like an exaggeration, but in a way, especially when it comes to queer media specifically, I feel like we keep on seeing the same faces a lot, and in all of those films, in all of those shows. And it's nice to have, you know, a little bit of a refresher. It's nice to see some more variety. New faces are exciting. People yearn for new actors to debut. I think people are starting to really appreciate new faces coming into the industry and, you know, growing big, watching, you know, a birth of a star in a way. That's why I think casts like, for example, the new Hunger Games movie are so exciting to people, because you have some of the most important roles in said film being filled by people who we've never heard of before. It creates so much excitement, and it's also fun to see, you know, a new person go out there and conquer the world. And we're definitely seeing that with Hudson Williams and Connor Story specifically. It's also fun to see new faces that also like don't feel so rigid. People say that Hudson Williams specifically has never been media trained. He has, like, but the thing is, he's promoting a project that is very openly, like, very explicit. And I think it's allowing him to be more freaky because that's where people know him from now. And I think it's a big refresher because this is not, a person that feels like they're actively like controlling their behavior. No, he's just being out there in like the variety interviews, saying the most wild shit I've heard a person say in a while. And honestly, I love it. It's so refreshing. I would say that the second drawing factor to the show itself would be the representation that it offers. Whenever a queer show pops up, I think it always resonates with the queer community specifically. And we are way more likely to like give it a shot, watch it, support it. As a community, we are sort of like drawn to that. And I mean, understandably so. The representation aspect though goes really, really far and really, really deep. And I think this is also going to be probably the main talking point of the later section of the video, the why Heated Rivalry matters so much. It's one of the main reasons why we tune in to watch this show just in general, but it's also one of the main reasons why this show matters in the long run. The explicitness is very, I would say, important in this case. This is also something that I'm going to discuss a little bit later. I keep on saying that. I need to stop saying that. But this is a point that's going to be coming back a lot during this video because there's a lot of talking points around the explicitness of Heated Rivalry. This is especially relevant when we talk about criticism against the show. But other than that, I would say that it's very, very refreshing to see a show that isn't afraid to be slightly more explicit. And that goes especially in the context of queer relationships. It is a very important representation to have in a show like this because this is an authentic part of queer lives as well, many of them. Now, this point goes a little bit outside of the queer representation thing. However, I think it's still important to talk about, and I feel like this is the best place that it fits in. But I wanted to quote one of the actors from the show named Francois Arnaud, who plays Scott Hunter, and what he said about the show and why so many people love it. He said, "The sex is how they hook you, and then they kind of really break your heart by the end of it. Women, but really everyone, is really tired of emotionally unavailable men, and to see people open up in that way and characters show up in that way on TV, it's a rarity. I think we're ready for it." He's 100% correct. And not just women are tired of emotionally unavailable men. Everyone kind of is. I feel like everyone who isn't an emotionally unavailable man is tired of these men. And then the fourth drawing factor, I would say, is the internet reception and edits. I would say this is probably the number one reason why I watched this show, because everybody was talking about it. I also kept on seeing edits of, certain scenes from this show to some of my favorite songs, which also piqued my interest a lot. I think people just in general underestimate the power of edits and fandoms when it comes to promoting the show. And I mean, that's honestly something that I would really, really love to talk about in the future. So if you would be up for a video about that, let me know. Edits specifically are a great way of showing off fan interpretations of character arcs. They show off amazing scenes from the show. They are just very, very important. I saw it somewhere, I think on TikTok, and I wish I had saved that video because I don't think I'm going to be able to find it. Maybe I'll find it in post, but some creator was talking about how Heated Rivalry in a way is bringing back edit culture in a way that normalizes queer coding of media with the songs that are chosen for set edits. Most of these songs are not queer in design, but they become queer when the context is given. And that I think is also very important. Like, great example, recently I saw an edit of Shane and Ilya, just like some scenes of them in the show, to Never Enough from the film The Greatest Showman. Made me feel a lot of things, actually. The takeover of Heated Rivalry felt like a big cultural moment. Like, it almost feels, I don't want to say like it resembles, but it almost felt like the Wicked fever that we saw a year ago and then this year as well when the second part dropped. That sort of big emotional moment. It kind of reminded me of like Barbenheimer in a way, where like everybody was talking about it. And also many creators who have made videos about said show have cited that as an influence to them actually like watching the show. All of these creators kept on making videos and talking about how Heated Rivalry matters so much, talking about all of the episodes, talking about the writing of it, the acting of it, all of that stuff. So now let's do the same. Now it's time to talk about all of the episodes in like a brief recap and talk about some of the highlights and the elements that they introduced to the story of Heated Rivalry, the acting, the script, the message for the viewer, all of that.
Fine, you win with your gay stuff. That's what you want, right? To win.
First of all, before we even get into the episodes, I want to say that I love the format of the show. This season takes place over 10 years. It takes place from 2008 to 2018. That means we have a lot of time skips in this story. I actually love that. I typically, in shows, I'm not the biggest fan of time skips. I feel like sometimes they're being used as like a lazy writing device. Like, for example, Stranger Things. Stranger Things is going to come up a lot in this video because it's a great example of how to fumble a show. And now we have Heated Rivalry here as like a contraposition of it. But that time skip in season 5 was so completely unnecessary. But here I love it because I love that this story takes such a long time to actually develop. I would also say that the sporadicness and the like frequency of these time skips, that tells a story in and of itself. Like at first they're very sporadic. We keep on jumping from events that are like a year apart, half a year apart, because this relationship that we see from Shane and Ilya or later from Scott and Kip, it doesn't really feel like that important yet. It's something that is like in the back of their heads, but it's not something that's consuming them the way that it consumes them later on in the show. And the time skips become less sporadic, less like separated by time when the feelings grow stronger and the action intensifies. It really feels like we're going from like a one-night stand into a full-on relationship, and we're seeing that relationship sort of bleed over the lives of Shane and Ilya. It becomes realer, it's like materializes, it's becoming harder to ignore. Okay, now let's talk about the episodes. Episode 1 is called Rookies. It starts in December of 2008 when Shane Hollander of Canada and Ilya Rozanov of Russia meet before the like cup final, which Russia wins. Just in general, I don't really care about the hockey stuff in this show. Like there are some names that I remember, like the major like hockey league or the major league of hockey or something like that. If I get some of the names or like cups wrong or like teams wrong, don't pay much attention to that. I actually don't think it's that important really for the storytelling, although some people might argue differently, and I would love to hear your opinion about that in the comments. Sorry, I lost the ability to speak there for a second. Have I mentioned that this is my second language? Then from December 2008, we go 6 months later. There's some like major hockey event where Shane and Ilya get picked to play for 2 different teams. Then there's a hockey cup in which Russia beats Canada, and later Shane and Ilya meet to film a commercial. And after the said commercial, they have sex for the first time. And that's their first time together. And I think it's also implied that this is Shane's first time like with a man just in general. The major hockey league then starts setting them up against each other, producing this like rivalry storyline between them during their rookie season. After a game, Ilya invites Shane over again and they meet up again in his hotel room. He gives him his number of like the hotel room, and they also exchange numbers and give each other code names so that like if anybody saw them texting, they would be like, oh my God, who is this girl you're texting? So they wouldn't suspect that they're actually texting a guy. Ilya's code name is Lily and Shane is Jane, which that one is very funny to me. Actually, both of them are really. 4 months later, Shane wins an award for Rookie of the Year, and he gets into an argument on the balcony with Ilya, and he accuses him of being a sore loser. Ilya then kisses Shane, and Shane is very scared, and he's like, okay, I'm leaving. None of that. Goodbye. And that's kind of the end of episode 1. This episode is already like good storytelling wise. It tells a story of something that's sort of happening on the sidelines of their career life, you know, in hockey, you know, becoming rookies, getting all these awards, playing games, but it's something that feels like it's in the back of their heads already, especially when it comes to Shane. Like Ilya, I think this episode we don't really see as much of like an emotional connection forming between from like the perspective of Ilya to Shane. We see that later on, but you can definitely tell that Shane is already like very, very confused about the way that he feels. Although I would actually say, controversially enough, out of all the episodes, this is my least favorite. And it's still incredible. Saying that this is my least favorite episode, it still means it's better than anything Stranger Things produced in the last couple years. Sorry, I keep on dunking on Stranger Things. I need to stop. Stranger Things fans are gonna get me. This is a great pilot episode. And after that, we move on to episode 2, which is titled Olympians. In 2013, they have been sexting for a while, and Ilya starts doing that before the game, which Shane is initially mad about, but then they meet after the game and they go at it again. Then we go to the 2013 Olympics that take place in some town in Russia. I forgot the name of it. And Ilya starts ignoring Shane's text, which leaves Shane feeling like very weird because what the fuck. Later, Shane has a conversation with Scott Hunter and also Carter Vaughn. I think that's how he pronounced the last name. And he asked them to join him in supporting a friend who is a figure skater and who's competing in one of, you know, the Winter Olympics, like things like I don't know what to call that. Carter then says something about the figure skater, being very brave because we are in Russia and this is a very flamboyant sport, and that unlocks a little thing in Shane's brain, and he sort of realizes that it might be difficult for Ilya because of that, because of what Russia stands for. The episode is more Ilya focused later on, especially because we get to see him go to like a gala where Ilya is met with his past hookup partner, and this is a guy named Sasha, but he doesn't want to like engage in anything with him. Ilya continues to ignore Shane moving forward, just to then be faced with him at the MLH Awards, where Shane is understandably mad at him. Ilya proposes a meeting that night and they make love again, but they also have a conversation about Russia afterwards, and Ilya clearly doesn't want to talk about it. Shane starts feeling slightly weird about it, slightly awkward, and he ends up leaving, and that's the end of the episode. I love that this episode deconstructs the character of Ilya so much, because when we meet him, he's this very like confident character, way more confident than Shane, but also there's so much darkness to his story that we don't get to see in the first episode, and we only get to see it now in the second episode. And I think it's very important. You know, everything that he's doing up until this point is like a facade that he's putting. It's an act. And finally, we sort of get to see him drop that a little and like what he's actually going through. This episode is great. I love this episode. However, this is where I'm going to go on like a slight little rant, because, and I feel like some people are going to be like, I don't know, maybe not weirded out, but they're going to be surprised that this is like a problem that I have with this show, and specifically with the fandom of it. Especially like as a Slavic person, I feel the need to talk about this. The way that this fandom treats Russia is very weird to me. Why are we romanticizing Russia of all places? I've seen so many people talk about Russia in the context of the show like it's something good. Where is it? Where is it good? First of all, show aside, have you seen the news that come out of there? Have you seen what they've done in Ukraine? Have you seen their stance on queer relationships, on queer people, on queer identities? Have you heard what their president keeps on saying? Do you know the history of that country? But then also in the context of the show, Russia is never treated like something good in this show. Like that's one thing that I'm gonna give this show definitely, is it does not romanticize Russia. That's something that the fandom did, not the show. Because in this show, it's very clear that Russia is a place where Ilya doesn't feel comfortable with himself. Russia is a place that in which he feels like he has to close off, where he cannot be himself truly. So this take on Russia that I've seen in this fandom is very, very weird to me, because like, how do you miss the point of the show so hard? Like, it just went right over your head. Just because Ilya is Russian doesn't mean that Russia is good. Like, Ilya is a fun character. Yeah, we all love him, and he's great, and he deserves the world. But he also comes from a place that isn't good. I do kind of think that this sort of take on Russia and Russian culture as well comes from a place of privilege. And that is the privilege of not knowing this country and not having too much history with it. I mean, Russia kind of has history of like so many different countries, because, you know, you don't have to border it in order to be in a conflict with it. But specifically, I live in Poland. I'm Polish. My ancestors are Polish. I'm Polish through and through. And my country has a long history with Russia that is not positive. Like, for fuck's sake, we literally have a border with them. Then below that border, we have Belarus, which is very openly pro-Russian. And then under that, we have Ukraine, which is being currently invaded by Russia. Like, and you expect me to sit here and be like, oh my God, yeah, Russia. Like, but okay, my little like rant aside, let's talk about episode 3, which is called Hunter. This episode is, I think, very, very divisive, because Shane and Ilya are like the main focus of it. They barely appear in this episode. And instead, what we get to see is this romance building up between Kip and Scott, which, by the way, I love Kip. I would go to war for this man. And personally, if you hate Scott and Kip, like, girl, I'm just sorry. I cannot relate to that mindset. I don't subscribe to that idea. I saw a meme somewhere, I think it was on Twitter, where somebody posted a drawing of like a person eating 2 cakes and captioned it, "This is how it's like to enjoy Shane and Ilya and also Scott and Kip." And they were just like, you know, eating the 2 cakes. That's how I feel. Why would I eat 1 cake when I can eat 2? Like, girl. Although in the context of the show, Okay, let's just move on maybe. So the plot of this episode starts when Scott starts buying smoothies in this new place he's never been before from Kip, who very quickly develops a crush on him. Scott keeps on returning to that shop because he's slightly superstitious and he starts thinking that like the smoothies like made him win the games or something. And he starts slightly flirting with Kip, which makes him spiral. Like this man is spiraling half of this episode because he's like, what does it mean? Like, can he maybe, is he like in, what's going on? In the meantime, Shane shows up and like I think for the only time this episode and has a fight with Scott on the field when Scott compares him to Ilya, which is very, very interesting, like from narrative standpoint. Like I think that is so meaningful. That's such a small little moment, but I need to know your guys' opinion on this because I think it's a very meaningful moment, and I think it says a lot about Shane's character as well, and like the things that he fears. He fears association with Ilya to the point that he doesn't even want to be compared to him. Oh my god. So Kip has to work multiple jobs to get into his, like, I think it's an art school that he wants to get into, and he serves food at this like gala where he meets Scott. Again, he like, I think throws some food on him by accident, and Scott takes him to his house. And you know what happened there. They start sort of like living together for 2 months, but Elena, Kip's friend, tells him that Scott being closeted is like kind of demoralizing him and he deserves better. Then Kip invites Scott to a hangout at a gay bar after that conversation with Elena, but Scott declines, still not being really comfortable with sharing his identity with anyone else. Kip leaves his apartment and then he has a breakdown, and Scott watches from outside as Kip celebrates his birthday with his friends. First of all, I love this episode. I love it. And also Kip is in this episode. I love Kip. Probably my favorite character in the entire show. I love him. That man needs to be protected at all costs. He's literally 5 minutes old. I love him. Free apples tall. Genuinely protect him at all costs. He's so precious. But I also think that this relationship is like very, very important to this show. Like in a way, they are the reason why Shane and Ilya actually end up together. They sort of paved the way for them when you really think about it. I feel like, okay, stay with me here because I don't know if I'm capable of like explaining this well, but I feel like it's representation inside of a show for the characters in said show, if that makes sense. Thanks to Kip and Scott, Shane and Ilya see themselves on that ice rink for the first time in a way they never saw themselves represented before. And that, kids, is why representation is important. Episode 4 is titled Rose. Ilya and Shane continue their meetings up until like 2016, I believe. And in Boston, Shane meets Ilya at his house for sex. Ilya invites Shane to sleep over, makes Shane some tuna melt, which sounds disgusting, by the way. I don't really know what that is because I didn't really pay that much attention to it in the show, but like, I don't know, tuna? I hate tuna. It's disgusting. They also talk about their lives. Ilya says that he is worried for his father's health. The guys have an intimate moment that sort of unsettles Shane, and he leaves abruptly. Soon after that, Shane meets a film star, Rose Landry, and begins a public romance with her. Yes, compulsive heterosexuality. Alexa play Actor by Conan Gray, or Good Luck Babe by Chappell Roan. I think that's the more like known why, but Actor is literally about the same thing. It's just like an MLM relationship, and then this is a WLW relationship. That's literally the difference. That of course makes Ilya very jealous, and Shane and Ilya go to the same nightclub with their friends and dance and make out with women to make each other feel more jealous. One thing, that club scene, and this is another one of like my little like Slavic thing that I picked up on very, very quickly because I know the song, All the Things She Said, and I also know the artists behind said song. I think that was a big, big bad choice to put that song there. Like the club scene is phenomenal actually, and then you play that song of all songs. Maybe I am the friend that's too woke, but that genuinely did like limit my enjoyment of that scene. I wish that that was a different song. I've seen so many edits of that scene specifically in the club with like very, very beautiful music, or just in general like other songs that make much more sense in the context of the show, but also like in the context outside of the show as well. This is a song by pro-Putin girls who faked being lesbians, and that's the song you put in. yeah, I wouldn't say that's the wokest of moves from the creators of the show. I think that could have been researched a little bit. But it's like, I feel like that's common knowledge that like these girls are not, like they faked being lesbians, right? Like I think that's common knowledge, right? I don't know. Other than that, I would say that this episode shows so well how many queer people try and cope with their identity by not coping with it at all and instead trying to reject it and turn straight. Like if someone tells you this is not an accurate depiction of the queer experience, girl, like I call bullshit. Episode 5 is titled I'll Believe in Anything. Very good title for this episode. At dinner with Rose, Shane's tea gets clocked by Rose.
Wearing 6-inch heels. Have you ever tried to walk in 6-inch heels, ladies? I mean, I haven't. But I can imagine you might sway a little bit and lean on the walls. So there's that. Who knows?
But they decide to stay friends, and I would say it's actually a very sweet moment. In 2018, then later, Ilya and Shane reconnect and play on the same team for the first time. And when Shane suggests the relationship has deepened beyond casual sex, Ilya insists that Russia and his family would not accept him as a partner for Shane. They would not accept them as a couple together. Ilya later returns to Moscow for the funeral of his father, and he has a big confrontation with his brother, who openly hates him at the reception of the funeral. And after that, distraught, he calls Shane and follows Shane's suggestions to express his complicated emotions in Russian, which includes confessing his love to Shane. This is probably my favorite scene of the entire show. This made me actively sob my eyes out. Then Shane is injured at a game. Ilya visits him in the hospital, where a delirious Shane asks Ilya to spend his summer at the cottage. While Shane recovers at his parents' cottage, he and Ilya watch on TV as Scott wins some sort of big cup, hockey cup or something. And to their shock, Scott comes out by inviting Kip onto the ice rink and kissing him publicly. And the episode ends with probably one of the most iconic lines ever said in TV history. I'm coming to the cottage. This is my second favorite episode of the season. This shit is packed. First of all, you have Ilya's feelings and you have Shane trying to comfort him through the phone, which if you've ever tried to comfort a friend through a phone, it's not easy to do when you're not there. But I feel like in this scene, it really works. And I think it's such a genius idea to have Shane advise Ilya to speak in Russian, because that's his first language. That's that's the way that his his brain was programmed to speak, to channel emotions, and I think that's beautiful. I love that he grows more understanding of how Ilya's nationality and upbringing complicate things for him. That monologue that Ilya has is probably the best scene of the show, as I said before. It's just genuinely heartbreaking to hear, him trying to be there for the family, but feeling he isn't enough and he isn't doing enough, and always having to put himself second because the needs of his family are always going to be first, but also feeling like they hate him. So he's doing all this, but never getting the love that he feels like he deserves. Heartbreaking. That hospital scene is everything to me. It's just so cute, but also you can see that Ilya, he's very worried, but I also think that this is the point where he almost feels like maybe this is the breaking point. Either he leaves Shane for good or he goes into it head first. A slightly turned Shane from all the medication that he's receiving, trying to convince him to come to the cottage is just the cutest. I loved it. And I also love that it became a whole media trend of people recreating that scene with different plushies or different other objects.
I was gonna ask you, Hollander, will you come to my cottage this summer? Don't go to Russia. Come to my house. We'll have so much fun. It's so private. No one will know.
Hollander, you know we can't do that.
We could have a week or even 2.
His delivery of, will you come to my cottage this summer, is just, it scratched my brain in the correct way. It was, oh my God, I love that scene so much. Then, of course, you have the very, very epic coming out scene between Scott and Kip, which I also sort of talked about 2 weeks ago, where I discussed the queer writing in Stranger Things, because it was one of the examples of queer coming outs that I actually loved in media. This one, epic. It actually did make me cry so much. And also, going back to my point from episode 3, this is why representation matters, because Shane and Ilya watched that on TV and they're like, oh my God, it's possible. I'm coming to the college. And that's why the story of Scott and Kip is very, very important. Like, it's a powerful moment. It's meaningful for other characters as well. It gives them the courage to go to the college. Also, I really love Rose. I think she's a great friend. And I'm so happy that they didn't go like the route of like the stereotypical like straight white girl friend with her, because it's it very easily could have looked like that. And that's another conversation that I feel like we need to have sort of, and just like outside of either rivalry, because this is an example of like a great friend. Like, she is really, really supportive, but she's not one of those like, oh my God, you're in prep, bitch, like kind of girls. I hate that.
Bitch, you better come to brunch, bitch. Bitch, we're going to the brunch, bitch.
Girls who like fetishize gay men in a way, that's a big, big conversation that I feel like we need to have as a society, because it's horrible. Thankfully, I never went through that, because I feel like I have a very like great sense of like which people I want to avoid. And like, I can immediately tell that like, I don't want anything to do with you like this. So I've never been through that, but that sounds horrible. And also, it's quite common. Like, why are you treating us like we're fucking labubus, accessories? Like, girl. Episode 6 is called The Cottage. Shane drives Ilya to the cottage, where both reveal neither have had intercourse with anyone else in the months since they were last together, meaning that we're starting to get committed to each other. Ilya talks about his mother's death by suicide and proposes marrying Svetlana for American citizenship, but Shane objects and instead suggests a different plan. Said plan is as follows: they publicly turn their rivalry into a friendship, and then start a suicide prevention charity, and then also have Ilya move closer by playing for the city of Ottawa. Yeah, Ottawa. And then the two finally confess their love to each other. Then Shane's dad arrives to the college unannounced, and he sees, them making out. And I think it's Shane who's like being pressed against like the window by Ilya, like, and he sees that and he immediately runs away, which is very, very weird. Like, I'm so that was the one thing that I was watching that episode being like, why is he like evacuating? Wouldn't you like want to talk about them immediately? Like, why did he just like go away? Why was he like, oh my God, no, I'm running? Like, girl. Ilya then accompanies Shane while he comes out to his parents and explains their relationship, leading to an apology from his mother and the discussion of future plans over dinner, which that whole scene, I'm gonna talk about it in a sec. After Ilya calls himself Shane's boyfriend for the first time, Shane and Ilya drive back to the college as a couple in a beautiful ending for the first season of this show. This episode made me sob multiple times. It's so beautiful because finally they start working together and are trying to fight for a future for themselves. They get inspired by Scott and Kip, and they're finally admitting their true feelings to each other. They're finally like, oh my God, yeah, I want this. That coming out scene from Shane, and also how his parents react to that, like, again, sobbed so much. But I also love that his mom like has this like earnest talk with him, and she's like, you have nothing to apologize for, because he starts apologizing for who he is, which is crazy, but also like very relatable. And the first thing she does after that is being like, okay, so what merch opportunities do we have here? Capitalist queen. No, but that entire section is so beautiful. And Shane's like panic attack, being just like overloaded with emotions and having to like just like calm down, and Ilya calming him down, being like so supportive. It's just, and especially after episode 5 where Ilya has a breakdown and Shane kind of comforts him over the phone, and now seeing the other side of that is, oh my God. I feel like I can't word how beautiful this episode is to me. It's difficult for me to word that. It's just everything. It's like one of the most beautiful endings I've ever seen to a story. It leaves it open-ended because you still have, the plot for the next season. We know that this next season is coming. All of the conflict isn't solved. The world still doesn't know about Ilya and Shane. However, they leave this season as a pair. They leave it connected and as a couple, and it feels like they're like ready to take on everything. I think this season was focusing more so on the internalized feelings and how we combat them. I think next season is going to be more so about the externalized extent of that. I think we're going to see much more like homophobia from the outside world. I think we're going to see, maybe the effects of them coming out if they do, because I don't know what the plot is going to be. I have not read the books, but I think that's what we're gonna see, and I kind of love that because we're tackling, you know, the different stages and the different like areas of queer struggles, like season after season, and I love that. So my ranking of the episodes would be first episode at the bottom, then the second episode, then the fourth episode, third episode, fifth episode, and finally my favorite episode of the season is episode 6. I think this ranking isn't like that controversial. I think most people would probably agree, but I mean, drop your ranking in the comments below, I don't know. And now I want to move on to another section of this video. I would say that this is probably like less important, that, you know, the queer representation of it all and the meaning of the show, but I still want to talk about it because this is something that I kept on thinking about a lot when I was watching the show, and that is the production and the technical standpoint of it all.
I'm coming to the cottage.
First of all, this show is beautiful. This is beautifully shot. The colors they use, the settings they chose, how vibrant everything is. This genuinely feels like a dream scenario in a way. Like it's so beautiful, especially episode 6. Like when you see them in the cottage, like with like the nature and all that, it genuinely feels like some sort of like Renaissance painting in a way. Like it doesn't feel real. It feels so beautiful. It feels rom-com-y, or like maybe not even rom-com-y, because I think this is just a romance movie in a way. That's the vibe. It's kind of giving like Call Me By Your Name a little. I love the vibe. The cinematography in this show is genuinely off the charts. This show puts every like Hollywood, Netflix, big streaming company to shame, because think about how long it takes for a season of like television to be produced nowadays. We just had the closure of Stranger Things. Again, that final season, I think, was in preparation for 3 years, something like that. We waited for that shit 3 years. And also, this show was being filmed for almost a year. Meanwhile, you have Heated Rivalry, which filmed at like, I think the beginning of 2025. And that entire filming of 6 episodes that, by the way, have pretty like long run times for episodes nowadays. 37 days and like barely 8 months in production. That's not even a year. The #1 show of 2025 was filmed for barely a month, and then you have it overshadowing this insane production done by Netflix that had millions of dollars pumped into it that took 3 years to make. It's crazy. And like, speaking about the budget, Heated Rivalry didn't have a big budget. It didn't have much like financial backing behind it, and you can definitely, I would say, tell after you start like dissecting the certain scenes, but like when you actually watch it, I wouldn't say it's very noticeable. I recently saw a video from a creator on TikTok talking about the technicality of, for example, the press conference scene in episode 1, where they purposely block out the interviewers because they couldn't afford to have many extras. Instead, they use like light tricks and focus on Shane and Ilya, but you can still hear the press. And same thing kind of happens with the award shows that we also get to see during the season. These moments are made to focus on the characters, on Shane and on Ilya, and listen to what they're doing, think about how they're feeling in these moments, you know, observe their action. And I actually almost feel like the smaller budget almost helps in this case. I don't need shots of like the audience doing these interviews, all these like award shows. Like I genuinely don't, that doesn't matter. That's irrelevant. All you need to hear is that they're there, and that's all you need. Literally all you need, because the main characters are Shane and Ilya. Those are the characters that you want to see. The rest doesn't matter. Another example is, for example, the hockey games, which we learned from like the pictures from the production that were posted by some of the cast members, that for example, the winning of the cup, the Scott and Kip coming out in episode 5, that entire thing was filmed in an empty stadium, and they just added these people in post. I think limited resources can like lead to clever solutions, and we see that in Heated Rivalry, and we see the lack of that in shows like Stranger Things, because they have like these Avengers Endgame level of budgets and failed to make an impression, failed to take risks, failed to be like impressive, interesting in any way, shape or form when it comes to the production, or when it comes to the like solutions they pick in order to tell their stories. And there you have Heated Rivalry with a budget of 50 cents and a dream doing all of that. Like, I'm sorry, it's not even an even playing field. You know, Heated Rivalry is on a massive disadvantage here, and they still end up producing better content. I think when it comes to production, we also have to talk about one of the most talked about things about the show, and that is the sex scenes. This show features a lot of them, and I think it's very, very important to note that they were supervised by Shayla Hunter, who was the intimacy coordinator on the Heated Rivalry set. That is a role that typically I wouldn't say is very important, and it's also not a role that we hear about a lot in different shows, but I think this one specifically is very, very important. The Hollywood Reporter put out this article which was titled "The Intricacies of Intimacy Coordination on TV's Hottest Show, Heated Rivalry," and in that article, Shayla got to talk a little about how she approached working on the show. This I think is very important to know from a technical standpoint of how like the show was created. I think there's always a lot of conversation around intimacy coordination when we get more explicit scenes in media, and we've seen before that sometimes there's just no coordination or barely any. That oftentimes leads to problems for the performers that have to perform these scenes and trauma, and also a lot of directors just don't feel the need to have an intimacy coordinator, which is crazy. So I think Shayla's impact here is almost like bigger in a way. This is one of the quotes from that article that I mentioned that really captured my attention. Shayla said, "My whole intention is to ensure that any action that's going to take place on the day of filming has been fully consented to by all of the involved parties and then everyone else. This includes the crew. Knows what is going on to be taking place, so we're all on the same page. The consent piece is obviously essential. I literally take the material that's in the script, anything that involves nudity, simulated sex, intimacy, or hyperexposure, and I flag that in a breakdown. Then I bring that content to the performer and get a sense of their boundaries and consent levels." This is also very important in the context of Heated Rivalry specifically, because the story of the show is not just set through the normal like spoken language. It's not really said by words. It's also said by the language of sex. And that is something that actually Shayla Hunter also talked about in this interview. This is what she had to say about this. "Context plays such a big part in this role. The context within the story, but additionally the context that the actors are living, which includes all kinds of things regarding their identities, the space that we're in, the time of the year that it is, what's happening culturally and socially at the moment. Context, context, context. I was considering the whole time in a holistic way, thinking about how those characters' identities and their lived experience influences some of their physical actions that we were portraying, but also how it might influence their vulnerability or lack thereof." Whilst taking notes for this video, I found a video from Nicholas Curcio, who talked about how intimacy coordinator is not a role that Hollywood treats seriously, and they actually cut down the amount of people they hired in that role because it was more economic for them. That happened very, very recently, and now you get a show like this being so popular, which only showcases more why this was a bad idea, because knowing Hollywood and its studios, they will try to recreate the success of Heated Rivalry at some point, and now they don't have the people working in the position that in a way was crucial for the show to succeed. And lastly, in this section, I wanted to focus quickly on Connor's story specifically and his character of Ilya Rozanov. Ilya in this show, of course, is Russian, meaning that he had a lot of work to do when it comes to preparing because he is American. He's not Slavic, and yet, when I was watching the show and not knowing who this man was, I did not know anything about Connor's story when I was watching it. I genuinely thought that they got like a Slavic actor to play this part because I'm sorry, I was fooled. When you actually listen to how he talks, whether it's in Russian or in English, it sounds like a stereotypical like Slavic person speaking in English or in Russian. Like that's the thing, is like I don't speak Russian, but I can very clearly tell that that's a very, very like accurate portrayal of the language. And then when he speaks English, I kid you not, I hear that kind of English spoken around me a lot as a Polish person. Like I would say he has like a very, very similar accent to a lot of Polish people who talk in English. I feel like that's a very stereotypical accent to have. Like I've gotten this myself because apparently my accent is like a little bit better and less people like hear that I'm Polish when I speak, which I mean, good, I think. I'm glad that people think I don't know, I'm good in speaking English, I guess. But a lot of people, when they speak, they have this like very, very hard Slavic accent that he recreates so well. And I think that speaks to his talent as well. There's an entire monologue he gets, which I already talked about, that was like 4 pages long. Apparently his dialect coach said the following words after Connor finished performing it. And then the coach was asked how much of it they could use in the show. And she said, all of it. he humbles me. That quote is taken from a GQ article about Heated Rivalry, by the way. That is so impressive. He had so little time to prepare. He does such a phenomenal job. And also, shout out to the direct coach here, because I'm sure that she also had a lot of work to do here. Her name is Kate Jablonowski, and I'm sure that she must have been a big part of why Connor's performance is so good. So shout out to her. And now I think it's time to move on to probably the most important part of this video. Why it all matters. Why does Heated Rivalry matter? Let me tell you, there is a lot of reasons why.
Clock that T. Clock it. Clock that T. Clock it. Clock that.
I love that I've been filming for like an hour and 20 minutes at this point, and I still have 5 pages of notes to go through. The curse of being a yapper is real, and I unfortunately have it. So the reasons why Heated Rivalry matters. There's a lot of them, but I had 6 that I thought of that are like kind of the main ones, and those are the ones that I'm willing to discuss today. First of all, going back to the previous section of this video and what I just talked about, explicitness and intimacy coordination. It's great to see positive portrayals of sex in media. I think, of course, it might not be everyone's thing, and that's totally okay. But ultimately, the more we talk about it and the more awareness we spread about things like consent or protection, that all is very important. I mean, considering that sex education just like globally is in a shit state, I think it's good to get shows that like kind of serve as it in a way. Of course, that isn't like the main takeaway from the show. I feel like there are shows that do that sort of better. I mean, Sex Education, for example, in a way I would probably say does that the best. But I think it's still an important thing to discuss here. And I also do kind of think that the critique of the show regarding its explicitness is very, very weird to me. Just because like parts of the plot revolve around sex doesn't mean that like every other talking point that the show ever like has is like worth less as a result. Like that's so crazy to me that that's an actual mindset that people who critique the show have. I think that's weird that like automatically cancels out all of the value that the show could hold for these people. Hudson Williams actually talked about it, that it's weird that all of this critique is coming in now that this is a gay show. Suddenly, it's too graphic. I don't think as many people would talk about it the same way if this was a straight couple going at it. Like, for example, I don't remember people talking about like, I don't know, Bridgerton the same way. And what about that? Like, that I think it's a very interesting like double standard to notice. I think it also reminds me of this like current rise of this like almost prudish way of consuming media that is becoming very, very popular, especially in the past couple of years. You know, the audience sees something that's graphic and suddenly you have all of the like the pearl clutching and oh my god, it's so risque. And what about the kids? What if the kids watch that? Or like it doesn't hold no value and like we don't want to see that. Like,
okay, so there's some education that needs to be done. I can see that.
And also, I do think that a point that is important to mention here is that a massive part of the Heated Rivalry audience are women. That's something that ties back very well to the fact that this show is also based on a sports romance book. Many people, and especially men, let's be honest, devalue books like these. Book Talk takes them, promotes them, you know, different creators on Book Talk talk about them. And these men see this as something horrible, that it's like demoralizing women as well. I feel like it's a similar mindset coming from the people who are doing all the pearl clutching about the show, actually. I think it brings up a very, very important talking points about how media that is made for either women's enjoyment or that is targeted at women or that women are just the majority of the fan base of is like automatically viewed as something lesser than something that would be potentially made for men. I think one of the best examples of that in recent memory to me is the Barbenheimer situation, which happened in 2023, where you had the Barbie and Oppenheimer films coming out on the same day, and Barbie was, you know, this pink adventure into the women's world. Not that women's world. And Oppenheimer is this, you know, very like dark film about an atomic bomb. And listen, I liked both of those films. I went and saw both of them, but a lot of the conversation around Oppenheimer and Barbie very quickly, I feel like, got reduced to Barbie is for women, Oppenheimer is for men. Barbie is a film about, what was that comedian that hosted the Golden Globes? What did he say? It's a movie about a doll with big boobs or something. What a way to reduce such a powerful film to just a doll with boobs. And that's just in general what happens when you have media that is targeted towards women or marketed towards women. And I hate that. That's why heated rivalry and its explicitness matters so much, because yes, this is a very, very explicit show. Very, very explicit. This is smart, but it doesn't take away from the story of it. Like, this is a very, very deep show that talks about so many struggles that need to have awareness raised around them. That is what this show is. I think it's important to see such like positive critical reception to it though, because it does make me believe that sometimes that sort of, side of media can be valued. And I think that's incredible. My second point would be the romance of it all. I have noticed more recently when like taking a closer look at how certain types of media are treated, typically shows, films, books, and also music, when the main topic of them is love, I feel like they receive worse critical acclaim, and they are received way worse as well. They're seen as shallow a lot of times, like there's not much depth to them, and actually like there's nothing to analyze there. And sometimes I guess maybe it's correct, but a lot of times it isn't. And also I would argue, if it's a romantic film that doesn't have like too much depth to it, I don't care. Like, it doesn't really need to have, like, not everything has to be like fucking miles deep for it to be like interesting or fun to watch. I don't need every single thing I watch to be like some sort of like allegory on life and society at large and how, I don't know, like whatever. I don't need that. I can have that, I can appreciate that, but I don't need that from every piece of media that I consume. That's my little pet peeve with that conversation specifically. Like, something can just be about love. It's okay. Love is beautiful. Why would we not celebrate that? And I think the answer as to why is we have this cynical culture that we live in. I hate this, like, as I said, this cynical take on love. We all should be like nonchalant and not let our feelings out, and love is cringe and not something worth like talking about. We live in a time that one of my professors at uni during like one of the lectures recently called the era of irony. Everything is ironic, everything is sarcastic, everything is cynical. There's not much room for authentic expression of feelings, and that is killing humanity. Everyone says that the feelings that we're feeling are like cringe. We should not care. We should be nonchalant. We should not show interest. We should not fangirl. We should not experience these like very heightened emotions. And that is so damaging. I think that in a way is killing the beauty of the complex emotional life that humans are meant to live. And I also, listen, that might be a little like off topic, but I also had a discussion about it with some friends at uni during one of our classes. And basically, it made me think about how men specifically are brought up, and how this whole movement kind of comes from men. Like, you don't see like women critiquing pieces of media the same way that you see men critiquing pieces of media, if that makes sense. The best example of that, I would say, in recent memories is Anthony Fantano, who is like a massive YouTuber. Like, he has a fucking huge audience. And then you have him taking, these experiences of like love and heartbreak and chalking them up to like these very, very stereotypical, shallow terms that he just doesn't give them a chance. If this is not like some indie garage band singing about how the world is falling apart and communism is the only like, I don't know, way to save us all, he's not going to be into that, because it's not like deep enough for him. And listen, taste is an acquired thing. You don't need to love everything. Not everything is for everybody. You might want more depth in your piece of media that you consume. But I think it's also very, very harmful to talk about, love and feelings like that. It comes from a place where we as men are raised to feel less emotion. The only emotions that we're like sociologically allowed to feel are anger. Well, actually, that's kind of it. And that later bleeds over to the understanding of media, because suddenly you have all these men talking about and trashing this very, very like beautifully romantic piece of media because it's not deep enough. And it's about love, and love sucks, love is cringe. It all starts with the way that we're raised. But also seeing love as uninteresting and lacking depth in this sense is just plain wrong. And I'm glad that Heated Rivalry is sort of like defying the way that people typically talk about more romance-focused media. This show is getting so much critical acclaim, as I said before. So many people are talking about it and the meaning of it, the messaging of it. And I think that's lovely to see. I think it almost like reinstates my belief that humanity is not lost and that we are still capable of feeling things that are not just like ironic anger. I don't know, like it does make me hopeful that maybe we can like turn this ship around and lead the society into something that doesn't, you know, operate just on like irony and nonchalance as well. I would really love to live in a society that like doesn't do that. The third thing why heated rivalry matters, and I think this is probably the most important point of the entire video, this is a representation of an accurate queer experience. Yeah, I do think this is probably the most important like reason why heated rivalry matters so much. Like this show makes people feel seen. That includes people who are out of the closet, but also people who are in the closet. Hudson Williams, when he was a guest on Andy Cohen's podcast, said the following words. It's definitely the people who reached out anonymously who are like, I'm still in the closet. Hockey players, football players, and basketball players. Those are the ones that really kind of hit you and make you go, this is a fun show and it's celebratory, but it's sometimes just hitting people right in the nerve. Like that is so important. I feel like sometimes people lack empathy towards famous personalities, but it's clear that so many of these folks also struggle because of who they are and the environments that they work in. These environments have the potential of not being that accepting of who they are. And this goes for many industries, not just sports. But I think sports is like one of the main like talking points, or has been for the past couple of years, I would say, because we don't have that many openly queer like sport people. Sportsmen? Yeah, let's call it sportsmen. Or like athletes, let's say. There's very, very few. And whenever one actually comes out, it's a big, big story because it's something that's like actually, I wouldn't say that's something that we're used to seeing. It's important to highlight those stories and to spread awareness about that. The potential societal scrutiny is scary regardless of whether you are famous or not. Look at, for example, Nico Keenan, who is an Argentinian Olympian and who actually recently posted about heated rivalry and how he related to it. It's not made up. It's very true, and it's the reality for a lot of people. I think this show portrayed its queer characters and their stories perfectly. It feels realistic, it feels true, and I think regardless of where you stand on the spectrum of queerness or whether you are just outside of it, whether you're straight, you can see yourself in these characters. They struggle to come to terms with who they are, they struggle with telling people, they struggle with relationships between each other as well. Like if someone says that this isn't an accurate depiction of the queer experience, I mean, let's talk about, for example, episode 6, when Shane comes out to his mom and starts apologizing for who he is and who he loves. If that isn't accurate, then I don't know what is. One of the first insults I ever learned as a kid was the word gay. And that goes for a majority of men out there. I was in like primary school. I was like second, first year, maybe even third. And people, well, kids were like throwing that word around at like playgrounds as like a slur and haha, you're gay. And very, very quickly, I like learned that that's something bad. I didn't understand what that was, but I felt the societal pressure. I knew that this was something bad and this was something that you did not want to be associated with. So later when I was growing up and I realized that actually I might have more connection to that word than I previously thought, that in and of itself is scary because again, that's the first insult I ever learned. And suddenly learning that this word that I knew as an insult for my entire life might be like an accurate description of who I am was actually terrifying. We're being taught from such a young age on the way of socialization that this is something that society does not want to see. It can be extremely difficult to remove these previously taught ideas of what's right and wrong that internalize homophobia. And we see that through the character of, for example, Shane. They go through so many things that queer people do typically, and I think it's represented well. Rejection, denial, fear, compulsive heterosexuality. It is all so accurate. And also, just as I said in my Stranger Things video, representation is also important to educate, and this show has a massive straight audience as well, to the point that straight hockey podcasts are now talking about it and doing entire like reviews of it, which by the way, they are kind of hilarious. I love how these straight men are just so like into it and like, oh my God, like they care so much about it. I think that's so cool to see. It's so cool to see straight people react so positively to queer media. Personally, for me as a queer person, it makes me feel like very, very good. It makes me feel happy because I feel like a lot of the time it kind of feels like it's you and it's the queer community against the world. And then you have moments like these that kind of remind you that like, it doesn't necessarily have to be that way. And I think that's really beautiful to see. Also, I didn't know where to kind of fit it in this video. So this goes into this section because I guess this is also another kind of representation. But I also learned that Shane is an autistic character. So that's another form of representation that is very important. And I argue it's actually maybe even more important than the queer representations, because I don't think we see like neurodiversity in media that much, or like at all, really. I can't remember the last time I watched the show and the show was like explicitly stating that, hey, this character is like neurodivergent. I genuinely can't tell you when the last time that was. So that's also a very, very good thing, and I'm happy that it's there. Now, my one little like criticism, I guess, is that this show is predominantly about gay men or bisexual men, which great, still, again, needed representation. But I hope that this show kickstarts like other projects that are similar to this or similarly received to this that can focus on other parts of the community as well. I would love to see a show of this caliber or this recognizability about, for example, trans people, or maybe, you know, make it a sapphic show. MLM shows tend to do better than, for example, WLW shows, which in and of itself is not good. That needs to change, and I do think it comes from like maybe a place of misogyny as well, but I'm still glad that we get to see a show of this notoriety that openly celebrates queer people. And on that topic, let's talk about the fourth reason why Heated Rivalry matters so much, and that is the gay happiness. This sort of relates to my previous point very well, but I love that this show doesn't end with a gay character dying. It doesn't end with tragedy. There's no like AIDS epidemic. There's no hate crimes, no sidelining, no active homophobia, no parents disowning their children. It isn't depressing. This is something that unfortunately a lot of queer media does, and I always thought that it was like slightly weird. The queer experience, of course, especially from like a historical standpoint, doesn't always like end happily. You know, we went through a lot historically, and we are currently still going through a lot. But I think it's important to see both happy stories and negative stories too. And I almost feel like sometimes it's almost like all we're getting is these sad, depressing stories that almost tell us that like there's no way we can live happily because something is gonna happen one day or another. Like it almost has this like underlying message that we like don't deserve happiness. And don't get me wrong, I like shows and films that are about queer tragedy as well. They do make me feel things. For example, Fellow Travelers. Great show. Loved it. Never gonna watch it again though, but I still really enjoyed it. That's not all that I want to see. I want to see queer happiness as well. It's nice to see, you know, this show that whilst of course it does focus on the struggles of queer people, specifically in the spotlight, but it also allows its characters to be happy. That ending, like I actually cried so hard when I first watched it. Like my eyes, my nose, my entire face was just like sore from that. It doesn't erase the hardships, but it's an emphasis of the love and the happiness and the acceptance. Sometimes we need to see stories that don't end happily, but I personally always appreciate the happy ones, the ones that don't actively make me depressed. And that's one of the reasons why, for example, I really love Heartstopper. There's something about like gay happiness and stories just in general that like, not to be like heterophobic or something, but there's just something that straight media just doesn't have. And that might be because I myself am also queer, but it feels like because of how society views queer individuals, when a character that is queer gets a happy ending, it affects me twice as much as if it was a straight character. There's actually a TikTok somewhere about that I saw, and that I think I saved to my phone. I'm gonna play the full thing now because I think it describes exactly how I feel about gay media just in general.
And see, this is why I like watching gay shit. This is why I like watching gay media, because gay media makes you feel things. Straight media will not have you bawling your eyes out at 5:30 on a fucking Friday. It just won't. Okay? When that man brought his man down onto the ice and kissed him in front of all of those people. And then Rosenoff said he's coming to the cottage. Straight shit will not have you feeling the things that I'm feeling right now. They just won't. I love being gay, and I love gay people, and I like watching gay people do gay things in gay media. Anyways, I'm gonna go buy all of the Heated Rivalry books, and I'm gonna read them, and I'm gonna put them on my gay little bookshelf next to Red, White, and Royal Blue, which is the only other book that I have about gay men. The rest are all about gay women.
The fifth reason why this show matters so much is the political climate we live in. We are living through a very difficult time, and especially for practically anyone who isn't like a white, cis, straight man, it's horrible out here. So seeing a gay show, an explicit gay show, take off the way that it did in the year of 2025, when you have all of these like new legislations against the queer community being proposed. You have hate crimes being committed. People just full on advocating homophobia and transphobia. Like, all of that. And then this show suddenly happens. The world is looking quite bleak right now, but this show is almost like a little ray of sunshine in this like everlasting storm that is happening outside. It gives you hope. It shows you that regardless of circumstance, it's possible to find happiness and to find love. And my last point, which I think this is actually something that not many people talk about, and I think more people need to be talking about, and that is the community factor of it all. This show gave people a sense of community. I would say it actually exceeded like the typical fandom stuff. Everyone was sad for the heated Rivalry Fridays. Most people you encounter who have been on the internet for the past few weeks will know what, for example, going to the cottage means. It's not monoculture, but it almost feels like close to it in a way, with how everyone seemed to be sad for this show. We all bonded over this, I think, and it was such a positive like internet moment for me as well. Like, there was so much room for conversation and analysis, but it also felt like such a safe space. This was a very rare moment of internet unity, and so many people were losing their minds over the show, deservedly so, and it felt amazing to be a part of that, even if it was all, you know, my time in this fandom has been slightly shorter because I only like started watching around like episode 4 coming out. Like, that's where I really started to get into it. Either way, I'm still grateful for my time in that community, and I think it made me feel very special. Those are the main 6 reasons why I think Heated Rivalry matters so much, and why it has been such a revolutionary show run, in my opinion. And now I want to like quickly jump from that and talk about what I think the future of the show can offer.
Hey, you haven't returned
You are gay.
We know that season 2 is already confirmed and it's on the way, and we know that this is going to be a hit. Like, everybody is going to be sat. They're going to be making incredible viewing numbers, and I'm so happy about that. What I hope for is that they don't go too far with it, though. I don't want the show to lose what made it special in the first place. I think you see that a lot with shows that like start off as these like little productions that later end up being, you know, these like blockbusters basically. Again, under the time that I'm bringing this up, Stranger Things. That first season of Stranger Things is probably one of the best seasons of television I have ever seen in my life. And then Netflix saw money coming from it and we're like, hey, we're gonna make this into a fucking Marvel Cinematic Universe. And look where that ended. So I don't want that for Heated Rivalry. However, I trust these people. I think we are in the good hands of some really great creators and actors. And I feel like the way that they've been talking about the season 2 that's coming sometime soon, I trust that they can do it. I trust that they can recreate the magic of season 1 and not lose the identity of the show. I kind of think that Heated Rivalry is going to be okay. I hope that this show starts a golden age for queer media. I hope it inspires studios to be more adventurous and to tell more queer stories, whether explicit or not. Although these studios behave very weirdly sometimes, and I don't know if they will take the right lesson from this. Like, I mean, I hope they do, but I genuinely see a possibility of us living in a world where like the studios look at Heated Rivalry and like, oh, you know what the main reason is why people love this show? Hockey. We should make more shows and films about hockey. I'm like, Rebecca, no, that's not the point. This season is gonna go down in television history as one of the best seasons of television just in general. Like, the ratings, the IMDb scores, like Rotten Tomatoes, everything. This show is doing numbers. It's getting so much critical acclaim, and I think it's so deserved. I think this is gonna be remembered as one of the most impactful like production of the 2020s, and I love that. I wouldn't have it any other way. We also know that Hudson Williams and Connor Story have signed up to do 3 seasons of Heated Rivalry in total, so I think after season 2 we can expect a season 3. It's gonna be incredible. I think this is like the new Heartstopper in a way. Like, Heartstopper was another one of those shows that like so many people were sad for. I think this is gonna be another one of those. And with that, I think pretty like optimistic outlook on the future of this show and queer media just in general. I want to thank you so much for sitting through this entire video, which was probably long as fuck. But if you did make it till the end, please let me know in the comments what you thought. And thank you so much for just in general being here. I also want to just quickly say, because the previous video I didn't get to because that was like pre-recorded. I filmed that like during Christmas. I want to thank you guys so much for the love on my Stranger Things video about the writing of queer characters. That is the best performing video on my channel. And I like, not to get like emotional, and I don't think it matters like that much to other people, but I was really, really worried about like my content and whether people would ever like listen to me, especially after Eurovision happened. And I decided to distance myself from it because of December 4th. You know, a lot of my content prior to December the 4th was Eurovision focused. And because they keep on enabling Israel as a state competing, I decided to just like ditch the contest and focus on stuff that actually makes me happy. But in a way, I wasn't really sure of that move. I wasn't sure if people would ever find what I have to say interesting, and I think that video, the Stranger Things video, really proved to me that like it's possible. And not to be like, you know, not to be like emotional, but that really did make me feel special. And I want to thank you guys so much on for the reception on that video, and I hope that, you know, you guys are going to enjoy some of the stuff that I have to offer in the future. You know, next week I'm going to be talking about book purism when it comes to adapting shows, and that comes from a very, very specific show that is ending its run next week. That video also comes out on my birthday. I'm turning 21 next week, so that's going to be really, really great. And yeah, there's going to be more Percy Jackson content as well, because I will be ranking all of the Riordanverse books, which are like here below. I don't think you can see them, but they are here. I'm gonna be talking a little bit more about music as well. There are some very, very like great albums that are coming soon, I'm sure. I think Beyonce is dropping Act 3. I'm probably gonna react to that. If Olivia or Harry Styles drop anything, I'm probably gonna be reacting to that as well. So there's that. I'm also gonna be talking about Cat Size music in the coming weeks as well, because I think there's some conversation that we need to have around that. And just in general, I also have a Google Forms in the description box below. If you have any video ideas or anything that you would like to see me tackle, I'm very, very eager to hear your opinions and what you would like to see from me. And yeah, just in general, please remember to, you know, like, subscribe, comment down below, follow me on all of my other socials, hype the video. And I want to thank you so much for being here. I want to thank you so much for listening. And I hope you had a good time watching this video. I hope you enjoyed also Heater Rivalry. Go and rewatch it tonight if this is your sign to go and rewatch it for the 7th time, or I don't know what time are you going to be watching it for. For me, I think it would be 5th, which is crazy. But either way, thank you so much for being here. I love you so much. And I will see you next week. Bye. Also pray for me because exams start very soon and I don't know how I'm going to survive that. Send prayers in the comments.